I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. Poppin' tan model BC couldn't brag 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 enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain.
And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and joining me is my co-host Jim Cerro.
Hey, Bob, I'm looking forward to this week's episode. We are going to tackle some hard-hitting questions like, did Jim Justice's dog make an appearance at the Greenbrier? We're going to praise
starting
Radford.
out with that because I have some words about that entire thing. But yeah,
all right.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But
all right,
Jim,
then we're going to. I was going to say, then we're going to praise Radford, and we're going to say to hell of Toledo and Kent State. That's what this episode's about.
Maybe, I don't know. But Jim, you can find on Twitter at Jim Cerro. You can find us on the web at horizonroundtable.com. You can find links to all of our social media accounts and podcast sites where we are available at horizonroundtable.com/subscribe. Become a patron, patreon.com/Horizon Roundtable. Power rankings are going to probably be up as soon as we get done recording this, and I got to make a couple of last-minute changes. But you get early access to the power rankings. You get all the get exclusive access to a couple of other things. It's $1 a month, guys. Horizon Roundtable on Patreon, and our donation drive is still going on. Again, all of the donations until Thursday, November 20th, are going to various food banks around this Horizon League city. So go donate. HorizonRoundtable.com/donate. And to your point, let's go ahead and start with this Greenbrier Classic. And no, Jim Justice and his dog did not show up.
Was there any doubt that you would end up disappointed on this topic?
Apparently we were disappointed on a lot of things because I, unlike Greg Kula, opted not to spend the $25 on this. I opted to go super old school, like 90s old school, and just listen to the radio call. And it was probably better that I did that. But yeah, apparently from what it sounds like, the Greenbrier Classic was, I guess they're waiting for the good teams to show up for things to work correctly, evidently, because they probably, I guess they had problems with the scoreboard the entire time. I guess there were issues with the floor at one point, I suppose. And from what Greg told me, the stream was nothing to write home about either. You know, I had an original draft of my power rankings where I ranked the Greenbrier Classic 13th. But I chose not to do that. It was for the Horizon League teams that were there, because it was Wright State and Cleveland State. They both split their series. Very clearly, Wright State and Cleveland State had problems with finishing out Kent State. Good news for Cleveland State is they get to play Kent State again next week.
Well, at least they have the scouting report done. They don't need to do any extra work.
That is true. But I gotta say, this is some weird transitive property going on, because on Saturday, Wright State kicked the crap out of Radford, and then on Sunday, Cleveland State had to pull a win over Radford out of their asses because they were down by as much as 17.
Yeah, as I say, I was watching I was watching the score periodically, and I was getting my weekly, rankings done for wins versus mid-majors and high majors and non-D1s, and I was getting ready to pre-pencil that in as a mid-major loss for the Horizon League, and lo and behold, they came back. I do think the concerning factor for Cleveland State, though, just in that transitive property world, Radford scored 59 against Wright State and gave up 92. Yeah. And then it was 87-82. So, Cleveland State definitely did not have a good week on the defensive end in any of their three games this week.
Well, I mean,
And
up until about 5 minutes ago, their offense wasn't anything to write home about either,
that's
for
fair. That's fair.
sure. But hey, they pulled it. They pulled it out, man. They pulled it out. But I gotta say too, the Wright State's performance, definitely. We had I know we talked about this last episode, and I know we've been talking about this in the off season, asking the operative question: who on earth is going to be the offense for Wright State? Turns out it's a freshman, Michael Cooper, who I think we spent like 5 seconds talking about the entire offseason. He is Wright State's leading scorer, and when we have conversations about who are in the swath of freshmen. Michael Cooper's name didn't really pop up, but he definitely does now, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's interesting when you think about the league. Um, everybody's pushing to get older, and then here you have a freshman from Jeffersonville, Indiana. Jeffersonville has a very good program. They've turned out
They
a
do.
number of Division One players in the last handful of years, and he's got good size, and he's been shooting the ball really well from deep. Overall, he is 39% from deep on the season. He didn't do that great today against Kent State, but prior to that, he'd been money from behind the 3-point line.
Yeah,
Um, it's interesting though about this could be a good example of when people talk about college basketball and they say, oh, well, college basketball is dead to me because your best player just leaves every year. And I don't know where Michael Cooper would have normally been recruited, but perhaps this is a guy that wouldn't have been able to, would have been too good for Wright State. I don't mean that to slight Wright State, but like maybe would have been recruited a little bit higher had people actually had interest in high school freshmen the way they
yeah.
used to 5 and 10 and
You're
15.
right. Had this been 10 years ago, he might have ended up down the road in like Cincinnati or Xavier or something like that. Yeah, if this was 10 years ago. But we live in
Yeah,
a new world now.
we live in a new world, but he's got good size and he's a great shooter, and he is exactly what they needed for that Wright State team because you knew
He
they were going to
truly
defend,
is.
and they had a great week. Overall, I mean, they gave 81 to Toledo, but Toledo really is an offensive-oriented program. 59 to Radford, 72 to Kent State. That's not a bad number. And so they, you can really point to they brought in all those long and athletic guys. I mean, those guys aren't necessarily playing a ton, but they had some other long and athletic guys that are already in their system, like Holden and Logan Woods, and those guys
Yeah,
are doing what Clint Sargent was hoping for, which is have improved defensive effort, and then you have a go-to scorer, and he's been able to do it for 5 games now. It's not like,
yeah.
okay, game number one, first night it's Franklin, it's a non-D1, he gets 10 points, who cares? But you go to Cal, he gets 17, he goes to plays Toledo, gets 15. Okay, he's on the scouting report at this point, and he's
Of
still able
course.
to get the ball in the bucket. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what the doctor ordered for Wright State.
And I think one of the other things to our point, since we are kind of comparing Cleveland State and Wright State's win over Radford, we talked about this constantly. We will have to continue to constantly talk about this about how Clint Sargent is his focus has been on the defense again to the extent where we were openly wondering where the offense was coming from, and I think that defense was certainly on display against Radford, whereas Cleveland State, they are. I mean, this is not the Cleveland State of last year, and so they're clearly more offense oriented, and so as a consequence, when they have to rely on that, and they have to hope that they have to rely on, you know, staying consistent on the offensive end, and it doesn't always work. Now, the other thing too is that between for the Kent State games, Wright State and Cleveland State had two different problems. Kent State for when in the overtime loss for Wright State against Kent State, I think the big problem with Wright State is the fact that they are not as big as Kent State is. Whereas Cleveland State had the size to match up with Cleveland State, but the problem they had is they were in serious. Their two big guys, Dan Ness and Josiah Harris. Those guys were in foul trouble for most of the end of the game, and it hurt them defensively. where they didn't have that much defense to begin with, and when you got 4 fouls, you're really gonna not have they're gonna carve you up in the paint, and I think that's kind of what happened to them, Cleveland State. So. A little bit of and again, I mean, we're there. It's funny we talk about transitive property with Radford, but then we talk about transitive property with Kent State, and you have a 3-point differential.
Yeah, you think of like Cleveland State, if Harrison Nesta are not playing, like they
Yeah.
don't have anything. Like that is the
No,
team.
you are
Whether
correct.
offensively, defensively, that is the team. Those guys played great today. They got a little help from Beard, who had 15 points and 6 assists, although not super efficient. But Northwestern, they weren't very
Hey,
good against Northwestern.
They got some key
but those guys,
pointers, Jim, from Foster Wonders. Come on, been waiting for that.
I mean, sure. Good for Foster, but like it's not enough. Like two or three 3-pointers a game, I guess, is his role. But if Nessa and Harris can't play because of foul trouble, you're kind of in a world of hurt. It's interesting though that Radford game for Wright State. The thing that really stood out there, not just Michael Cooper because he had a great game, but the team was 13. He was only 1 of 1 from deep. The team was 13 of 20 from three.
They were.
So you take that defense and then you pair that with ridiculously good 3-point shooting for a game.
Oh, yeah.
And it's no wonder it's a 33-point win, a great looking win on paper for the Horizon League, and congrats to Wright State.
Yeah.
I mean, they had it sucks that they didn't hold on today, but when they had Kent State on the ropes, but I would say they're playing way better, punching way above everybody's weight. I know I didn't pick them very high, and I'm looking really stupid right now. So, so congrats to those guys. It's a long season. I hope to keep it going.
Yeah. Hey, and road wins for the Horizon League are always a good thing, as we know. Regardless of whether they're in a neutral site playing in a ballroom and they're in an uneven floor, and the guy who owns the place doesn't even show up with his dog.
Well, I suppose it's better than his dog. It's better than his dog peeing on the on the standard during a timeout or something.
True, very true. Well, you know who else got a road win? First road win of the season for them too. IU Indy. The system went to Ypsilanti, and they beat Eastern Michigan. And it was like a little close, but they seemed to have that game in hand for that game. It was actually a very good week for IU Indy. They got to one more time have IU Indy being for the children, so that's always good. Apparently they had more kids at Corteva Coliseum. The only time they're going to be at the arena this year. The rest of the time they're going to be at the Jungle. More kids. There were so many kids, they actually set a record actually set an attendance record because they had all the kids there. Leaving absolutely no dispute, Jim, that IU Indy is for the children.
Having personally been to an IU Indy for the children game against Green Bay a number of years ago, I went when Link Darner was the coach, and the game in particular that I saw, the big song was Billy Ray Cyrus. He was on a collab with Little Nas X.
Oh my God! Is it Old Town Road?
Old Town Road, and they played that. And now you see all the clips of kids going nuts for 6-7.
And they did during this game, by the way. The 6-7 phenomenon has been huge in the Horizon League in particular, both on the men's and the women's side.
Tons of day games with the kids, and but yeah, I've been to one of those kids games when it's packed. And if you want to, be in a loud environment, I highly recommend that. If you have no patience for such a thing, just eat your tickets and don't go. A good thing for IU Indy in that game that stood out to me, though, and we talked about it last week on the podcast. They had given up 94 to LIU. They gave up 118 to Ohio State, 112 to Butler. 83 is probably the right kind of number that Coach Howlett's looking for there in terms of they're going to create more possessions. There's going to be more scoring. So you can't just hang your hat on, points per game, but 100 is just too many, for them.
Oh,
and in that game, 90-83 is the win. I mean, we got to be looking at is it Stan Heath? Is he still the head coach at Eastern Michigan? Cause he's got to be looking at the,
he at least is this season. I don't know if he's going to be there next season.
Cause he's been there a number of years and he's had some really good players. I mean,
he's had good players, but he has not had good teams at all.
Nope. They've really struggled despite having, they had the guy from
Exactly? How do you
Memphis,
like
and
have how do you have guys like Orlando Lovejoy and Imani freaking Bates, who was a draft pick? How do you have those guys and not be good?
it's a special skill, Bob. I
It
guess. Yeah.
is. It truly is.
But IU Indy, a great week, 2 wins. One is a mid-major win. I mean, the league, when I evaluate the league, I look at, the high major games, whatever, but I look at how we do against our peers. And this week we
Yeah.
were 4-8, and that's not great. Right now the league is 7-14 against its peers. But for IU Indy, with a new coach coming in late, to get a road win against a MAC team, God bless you, IU Indy. Thank you so much for doing
Oh,
that work.
absolutely.
That is,
Oh,
I'm super pumped for them, because that
oh
really
yeah.
bodes well for where they could be in the league this year. I didn't pick them super high because I wasn't sure they had the pieces they needed, but a MAC road win. Again, I hope to be wrong, because
Sure.
that's great for them and for the league.
And we talk about, and once again, we talk about those under the radar freshmen. The guy who led them in scoring, freshman McGuire Mitchell, 19 points. The kid had, he shot 50% from beyond the arc. And so, and he's done pretty, and McGuire Mitchell has done pretty well too. So I feel like I'm gonna have a hell of a time picking the all freshman team in the postseason. I know we're only like 4 or 5 games in, but man, it's impressive how well the freshmen in this league have been playing. And to your point, this main, these are probably freshmen, to your point, or earlier point, that we may not have seen otherwise because of the way that the college basketball landscape has changed. So I'm not complaining. Maybe these kids, maybe these guys leave after a year or two, but they're here and they're doing great.
They're here and they're doing great. It's interesting though with the freshmen, because last week we talked about Dixon and Stevie Elam from Milwaukee. Those guys had really
Uh-huh.
quiet weeks this week, and then we saw
They
some
did.
other people stepping up. So now it's a matter for all these players to have that consistency, to find their feet and get that. Michael Cooper seems like he's gonna do it every week. He's got 4 or 5 games under his belt, and he's been
Oh yeah.
consistent. Now it's a challenge for all the other young players who are, getting to, what they bring in game out, and we'll see where that goes as the season evolves.
Sure, sure. All right, Jim, we got to talk about Green Bay. We got to talk about this Minnesota game, man. I mean, took them to overtime.
The Minnesota game, I thought with that three and half court three with us as the buzzer was going off to what was a game. I thought if there's no more appropriate way for Green Bay to lose in this era, then I couldn't have what it would be, because I was just thinking like, hey, you finally play a good game, you hang tough with the team, and then get your heart
Yeah,
buzz three appropriate.
yeah.
They
Well,
had, they had the better one competitiveness. So to speak,
uh-huh.
but not Texas. But it was, comparatively to like Northwestern for Cleveland State, where they lost by 47 points. Here,
Oh, that was so,
you could at least look at that. They gave them
Oakland
a
against
game. They're
Houston.
right
That was bad too. But, I
there.
mean,
Yeah,
but but those are expected
I mean,
though.
most of
Those
the
are
high.
kind of
Yeah,
you're
well,
you're
and the
not
league
expecting.
every once in a while pulls off. As I say,
Yeah,
the league's been pulling off one of these typically a year late. I mean, I saw Youngstown, Penn State, and Robert Morris beat does Pitt, Greenville, Penn State, Chicago. Never mind.
yeah, yeah. Non-D. You're talking about
Point.
non-D1 play. Yeah, but you
Oh,
expect those.
I got,
You
I
expect
got.
those to be blowouts. You know. So yeah, we were
So
talking about
we've
those
had
non-D1s
the
there.
league. Yeah, well, I was kidding around about those ones because they were named after the flagship schools. But
Yeah,
the major wins, we own big league 1-6 season on the high major, but with Bay, few ones we went to over. Even in overtime, Marcus Hall had an and one play that fouled out Minnesota's best player to take the
Yeah.
lead. But just in the last 2.5 minutes, they didn't have what it took
Just ran out
to
of
bring
gas.
it to bring it home. Ran out of gas, and that would be expected. Like this change I took for the Phoenix is a significant lineup change. Like they had been playing 10, 11, 12 guys. They found 8.
Yeah.
Roots on 6. LeBron and Mac played 8 minutes each. So you went with the guys that you felt like gave you a chance of winning. Now, as an outsider, I'm not at practice. I know that people would say, "Oh, Jim, you don't know what you're talking about." That's true, but I am a little frustrated. Like it's Clark Phoenix, and I
Yeah.
have news and all that. Only them rotate game competitive and longer term because is that 28 season to figure it out with the 10 just got 5 last 9 minutes to be that and have a win. It was nice for Justin Allen in particular who got a DNP in his home state of New York last week.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking too because you had an issue. I was thinking about this because I didn't have a lot of high hopes going into Minnesota because the St. Thomas game was bad, and not only bad, you lost Dontrell Hewlett too for the season.
Hewlett, that was the gruesome injury. I was watching the game I paid for the subscription of the month or the net day or whatever. He had a non-contact injury, so his ankle injury was on a fast break. Nolan Milosali was coming at him, and he rolled it, apparently bad enough to maybe have broken his ankle. He left on a stretcher. The comments from Coach Gottlieb made it seem like he was done for the year.
The
comment. One thing I can say.
Yeah, he made a statement, and I said because he actually posted up. Gottlieb actually posted up a picture from IG Stories where he was in Hewlett's room. I guess they had to have surgery and all that stuff. Dude's in the cast, so I'm pretty sure he's going to be done for the season.
Yeah.
Well,
and he had been playing a little bit and doing.
Thank you for making me for convincing me that it was probably a good idea that I did not get access to the Summit League network on that day.
Yeah, it was just a bad game, and that was a bad moment in the game. I do for Coach Gottlieb. One thing I do appreciate about Doug as a coach. I know he gets a lot of flack from people around the league, but when Hewlett was on the stretcher and looked at and to be very distraught. I mean, Doug came over, gave him a hug. You could see him, give him some words of encouragement. I know Doug went to the hospital to see him after the game. I know a lot of coaches would do that, but I mean, it was like it was early in the game. It was in the heat of the moment.
Sure.
And so, Doug, it's a lot of things, but he tries to and wants to be a player's coach, and he definitely displayed that in that moment. But that was probably one of many moments from that game that you're like, this stinks. They were terrible. Green Bay was absolutely terrible in that game. They only lost by 19, but they were down by like 30 for most of it.
Yeah.
And they finally, when they went to a lineup with LeBron Thomas and Josh Hines and Justin Allen at the end, all the guys they brought in that were supposed to help them be better this year, then they cut the lead down to 19. So that to me tells me there's something amiss with the team overall, that when those guys do some things in a Division I game that they don't seem to have the trust of the coaching staff yet to be impact players in the rotation for whatever reason. So that's something to monitor for the Phoenix.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's not getting any easier, but with the first game in the Virgin Islands is going to be against Yale. And by the way, everybody, Jim's going to this one. Jim's making the trip to the Virgin Islands to go see Green Bay.
Yeah, so it can't be all that bad. Even with the games, I've seen Green Bay. I've been out of the country for the Phoenix before, and I've seen them get absolutely stomped. I've seen them get stomped by Queens. I've seen them get stomped by Utah Valley. And so, if they end up getting stomped by Yale, which I don't want, but if it does, I can still, rest knowing I'll be in the St. Thomas, the U.S. Virgin Islands. And so it can't be all bad.
No, hey, you take what you can get, for sure. So that's so at the very least you're gonna have some fun. You're gonna have some fun in the have some fun in the Virgin Island, the U.S. Virgin Islands. Technically, this is U.S. territory. So yeah, I guess we're doing that. And no, it's gonna be a fun. It's gonna be a fun one because Jim's gonna be recording this from the Virgin Islands. So I get to say that at the beginning of the podcast next episode. So that's gonna be that'll be something because it's amazing how many of our guys are now traveling all over at these places because obviously we know Kyle does that a lot. In fact, almost all the time. Turns out that Griffin Beers is heading down to Orlando, so he's actually going to go watch the Oakland UCF game and see some old faces on UCF who used to be over in Milwaukee, Themis Folks and Jamichael Stillwell. Uh, yeah, Oakland's week didn't go well with. I mean, it went okay. I mean, it was any hope that they could do against Houston, the same thing that they did against Iowa, disappeared very quickly. But at least they kicked the crap out of Defiance. At least that
Yeah,
happened.
I don't. The thing that was really tough for Oakland in that loss to Houston, of course, it's Houston. Houston's
Houston's
the
a
number one team in the
madman.
country. Just yeah, they're just their style of play is very difficult. But the thing two things that you kind of look at for Oakland in that game, 3 of 13 from three. So I didn't see the game, so I can't speak to where their looks were coming from. But just from an overall perspective of like, this Oakland team was supposed to be a little bit more like the ones that Coach Champions had in the past, where a little better perimeter shooting, a little more guard play. 3 of 13 from deep in that game, and then they were -14 on the glass, which I guess against Houston's probably pretty good. The strength of this Oakland team also is that they had a number of big bodies that can it should be able to play in traffic and rebound, and so those
Mhm.
two areas didn't go well, and that's reflected in a 33-point loss to the number one team in the country. But honestly, it doesn't you know for Coach Champy, these games are paying for their roster. They pay for his one bonus, and he's used to having to navigate bringing a team through a very tough non-conference schedule. So I
Oh
really
yeah.
don't worry about their team responding from this the way that I might worry about a lesser experienced team or a lesser experienced coach having to navigate a bunch of tough games to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, this is that's kind of how that's kind of how I assess this whole thing is that you have a situation in Oakland where you know who they're playing, you know how tough those guys are, you know if they keep it within 20, you consider that a victory.
Yeah, that night, Wednesday night for the league, you had Indiana taking down Milwaukee by 31. You had Houston over Oakland by 33. But what was really kicking the pants that night is Northern Kentucky lost by 12 to East Tennessee, and Purdue Fort Wayne lost by 12 to Western Michigan on the road. And those are the
Yeah.
games that's like, man, we got to get those. Those are the ones I want to
Yeah.
be talking about here on the podcast. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, it'd be fun to
absolutely.
talk about high major wins, but
Oh, yeah,
getting those
absolutely.
games.
Without a doubt. Yeah, the ETSU is it's kind of a tough one because ETSU is a pretty good has been a pretty good team. Um, and I felt that this is one of those games where I really hope that we would have saw, the Northern Kentucky kind of break out, and fortunately that didn't happen. I don't know what happened against Western Michigan with Purdue Fort Wayne. I do not know because they were winning at a certain point in time and then they were not, and they were not by a lot. And like
Yeah,
Eastern Michigan, Western
when
Michigan isn't exactly that great a basketball team either.
well, I can give you the layman's version of the Western Michigan loss. They shot less than 25% on their threes,
Ugh.
and over 50% of their shots were from three. So that's just not going to work.
There you
That
go.
math
Live by
doesn't
the
math.
three, die by the three. Yep.
And
Oh,
they
but
died.
yeah,
They died by the three.
they really did. Oh, so that's gonna be. Oof. Yeah,
I'm
yeah. No, that's gonna be. I mean, teams like Purdue, Fort Wayne, Northern Kentucky. Those are the time. These are kind of the teams where we are looking at them, and you're looking at that non-conference. You're not you are you really you really think that they are going to they have an opportunity to, well, I don't want to say outperform what's expected of them, but the expectation is, yeah, you should definitely be in this game. And, you're losing by double digits. That's going to be a big thing, especially, I mean, that's a tough one to break, especially if you're a tough one to take, especially if you're on the road and you need road wins. You know, it's a little disappointing. Almost as just,
Well, and
I
these
wasn't
are,
out. Yeah,
as I say, those are the teams that are supposed to be, they're picked in the middle of the league. There's opportunity
correct.
for them to be better than maybe expected. And
Yeah,
so if the middle of our league or the anticipated middle of our league is going out and losing to teams that aren't that strong, it gives you reason for concern for the strength of the league. Where the top of the league has performed very well, or the expected top of the league has performed, very well, at least in my opinion. The middle of the league, hasn't really brought anything to the table yet. And the bottom of the league has definitely been, you know, a Horizon League standards for the bottom of the league, which is not good. By the way, East Tennessee State leading scorer Brian Taylor II, which I believe he used to play for Milwaukee back in the day. So that's kind of a
I believe
fun
you are correct.
Horizon League.
It's Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit of that going on. Um, but yeah, I'm having a hard time figuring out what's going on with Detroit Mercy. I'm having a hard time with them. I don't know
Yeah,
what I
a tough
expected
week.
from. Yeah,
Tough week for them, because they had a non-D1 win, and then they also played Toledo and lost 90-83 at Toledo. The only thing I took from that game when I looked at it, Aiden Carter had 12-6, and sometimes you got to take the opportunity. I swung and missed on a lot of things, but I definitely referenced Aiden Carter when we had Dan Hasty on the
you did.
call, and I liked it. Yeah, that's the deep pull of Aiden Carter is definitely paying off for them. But otherwise, they didn't. They just didn't. Like 83 is a good amount of points for them because they've had trouble scoring. But for a defensive team, you can't give up 90. That's just
No, you
like
can't.
you're not staying true to you can't stay true to, you have to be true to your identity, and if they're going to defend and rebound, then you can't allow 90 points. And
No,
unfortunately, if they're going to try to outscore people, that's not going to work for their team more than likely. So yeah, tough
no, it
tough
really
start to the
isn't.
season for Toledo, or not Toledo, Detroit Mercy.
Detroit Mercy.
And Toledo over
No,
there.
Toledo. Well,
Todd
technically,
Kowalczyk's
well, I mean, before
happily.
they got to the Horizon League teams, they were doing pretty bad too. But you know, get to the Horizon League. There you go. So Toledo, when
Well,
you remember, guys, if you're entertaining a football bid to the Mountain West, we're here for you.
yeah, or the way that they're whooping on the Horizon League, maybe, maybe not. Maybe I don't want another good team in this league. No, just kidding. But they are. We're gonna find out more because I think there's more Toledo action coming from the Horizon League in the coming weeks.
Yeah, yeah, because Youngstown State is going to Savage Arena to go play Toledo next Wednesday. So yeah, it looks like spoil. I guess I should spoil this, but Toledo is in our power rankings this week because of how many Horizon League teams they've already played and will be playing. So just take the joke and just move on.
Yeah, speaking of
Or
Youngstown State, speaking of Youngstown State, they had a tough week in terms of they beat the aforementioned Penn State Shenanigans by about 60. And but then they played St. Bonaventure on the road. And honestly, I watched that game because I said last week I was a big fan of how Youngstown's playing. They
Mhm.
played that game 8-on-5. I mean, I know that that's fan talk, but not like Ron Taberski, who ref that game, and one of the other refs. I mean, that was bad. They were awful. So it was 8-on-5 in a tough arena. But we got to see Vlad Salrizi. He was back. He had 13
Yeah,
points. Saint Youngstown had a very balanced attack. They had
yeah,
Pollock had 12 or 13. Rich Rolf had a bunch. I mean, they got a little bit from everybody. And even though they didn't win that game, which is would have been a really nice win for the league and their second really nice win, they were right there. They lost that game, I think
yeah,
84-80, but they
yeah.
were
They
right
did.
there,
They were.
and it was right there for the taking. Interesting. The one guy that didn't do much for him was Zorgval after we sung his praises last
I
week.
know.
He didn't.
Well, he was
He
kind
didn't
of in
do
foul
much.
trouble for a lot of the time too, so that didn't help like at
And
all.
I feel like Bonaventure had that really big guy from Minnesota, Frank. I think it's Frank Mitchell or something like that. I mean, that guy was 6'10" and like 250, and he kind of was
Yeah,
too physical for Zorgval who's maybe 210 and 7 foot tall. So That was not
Yeah.
a great matchup for him. But
Well, the other
overall,
thing
the
too.
rest of their team looked like they belong.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is we did not see Tyler Robinette during that game, and
He was in street
the
clothes.
yeah, he was out of the game. So I think he was out for that game, and I don't know what happened specifically, but hopefully, I mean, it. The issue that this has is now you had Vlad Zelaride out for a stretch of time. It looks like you're going to have Tyler Robinette out for a stretch of time, but that's the thing. That's the thing. If once we finally get to a point theoretically when Youngstown State has a full squad, and that's probably going to be going into conference play. So other conference teams, you might want to be very, very, very wary for sure.
I don't know where you put them in the power rankings, but I still think they're the best team in this league. The
Well, I'm
game
not going to give
that's in
anything
front of them.
away. That's what you got to be a patron to get early
Yeah, no, you
access to
can't.
that.
Got
Yeah. Don't wait till
yeah,
Monday. Don't wait till Monday. Come on. What are you doing? Don't wait till Monday.
exactly. But I was super impressed with the mid-major games that they've played. They've been against tough teams and tough environments, and they look really good.
Yeah.
I did want to quickly talk about Milwaukee this week. Obviously, they had the two high major losses. They played at Texas
Yeah.
Tech and Indiana, but they got a mid-major win at home. They rocked Little Rock
They did.
92-72. And
Pretty convincingly.
it's funny because we commented that we hadn't seen Amar Aguilar much to start
Oh,
the
he
season.
showed up
He
on that
clearly
game
listens to the
for
Horizon.
sure.
Yeah, he listens to the podcast. I'm convinced of it. I'm just kidding. But he was 6 of 13 on
I hope
threes,
you're not.
and
We
he's
need more
had some meaningful.
listeners.
We need more Patreons. The listeners are good too.
Exactly.
But all kidding aside, he was big in that game, and it's been
Yeah.
nice for them. I know they didn't win. I know that they have the kind of team that's going to want to try to win one of those high major games, but they got a big effort from Danilo and from Seth Hubbard in both the Indiana and Texas Tech game, and you're maybe seeing the formation of a big two or a big three for Milwaukee, which should scare the living shit out of any of the fans of the other 10 teams. So
Absolutely. And that's why, yes. I mean, yeah. Oh, definitely. Especially again the Texas Tech game. They seem to come out a lot. They definitely came out. They came out fighting in that game.
yeah, they're only
And
down
that's
5 at the half. So
I know, and they did, and that's something we didn't expect after the Indiana game because the Indiana they were just a monster, just an absolute monster. Which I guess is something we weren't. I mean, I don't know what we were expecting. I guess obviously DeVries is a pretty good coach. Looks like. So
yeah, I think people are a little sleepy on Indiana because if you think, some of the guys that they have on that team are from when DeVries was at Drake. They have they have DeVries' son. They have the guard that was at DePaul last year, and suddenly it's like, oh, okay, well that looks like maybe a mid-major team, but they've been. I mean, they kicked the crap out of Marquette, and they kicked the crap out of Milwaukee, and so I think maybe that Indiana maybe is a little underrated for.
I would
for
say
right
so
now.
for sure.
So I don't put a lot of stock in that loss for the Panthers. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I mean, honestly, I probably need to do Coach Lundy a favor here. And last week we woke up Amar Aguilar, so let's wake up Faison Fields. We need Faison, who's been predicted by some to be an all-conference player. He hasn't really been able to make a big impact either yet. So let's see if he can get going and kind of get that starting five into high gear for the Panthers. So
yeah, absolutely.
We'll see if Faison's listening to the podcast or not.
I assume he is. I assume he is. By the way, I did notice that Wright State has one game this week, and it's against Ohio Wesleyan. So it's a non-D1 team. And I say this to Wright State, anybody from Wright State who's listening. I ask you very nicely, with all kindness in my heart, Wright State, please, on Thursday, I want you to beat the crap out of Ohio Wesleyan by 50 points. Anything less than a 50-point victory against Ohio Wesleyan, I'm going to be very disappointed in all of you. Thank you for listening.
Uh, Bob, you can't pull Ohio Wesleyan 50 piece out of nowhere. Please give us a backstory. There's got to be a reason.
Oh no, there is no backstory. There is a backstory, but it will never be revealed on this podcast. Ever.
All right, fair enough. Well, then
Ever.
fine. We'll just take the big W, and we'll know somewhere on Thursday you're smiling while it's
Yes.
happening.
At least, again, right, State. If anything less than 50, I'm going to be gravely disappointed. Oh, by the way, it looks like and speaking of St. Bonaventure, guess who else gets a whack at St. Bonaventure? Robert
Well, Robert
Morris.
Morris.
I
Yeah,
know.
Robert Morris had a sleepy week because they just beat the
They
pants off
really
of two
did.
two
Yeah,
non
two
D
D
ones.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it,
mean
it was it was what they do. They had their front line was great. They got enough guard play to win by a lot. But the St. Bonaventure, that environment, that team, that they have some big guys. That'll be a really good test. And then the guard play for St. Bonaventure, they had a little tiny guy that'll give Al Vargas fits because he was super fast. I can't think of his name, but their point guard was feisty. So it'll be a good test to see where Robert Morris is, because again, that's the kind of game where you go get a win like that. You're
yeah.
telling people like me you're for real, and you get stomped in a game like that. Well, then you're
Well,
moving
given
down
that
the
we
power rankings.
Well, I mean, given that we had Robert Morris and Youngstown State tied for second in our preseason poll, I mean, this is the best test of a how similar are you guys in as far as our expectations are concerned? I mean, hey, as good a test as any for sure. And the way we saw Youngstown State perform, I that is the benchmark. You at least have to be in that. You have to be in that game against St. Bonaventure, if not beat them. We do prefer that you beat them, but yeah, you definitely want to. You definitely need to, for our sake, get the rise up to where Youngstown State is, which where we expected you to begin with. So I find yeah. So but that's happening on Thursday, so that'll be fun. Hopefully we
Is
don't
that
do
for
eight.
is that one for the children too?
It is not. It's a 6 o'clock game. Yeah, we don't have
Okay.
any. I don't think we have any for the children games. At least on the men's side, uh, anytime soon. Yeah, we're getting into the MTEs now. We already had one in the Green Barrow run. You
Hmm.
have the Paradise Jam going in the Virgin Islands, and IU Indy is heading out to the Air Force. They're for that whole shindig out there. They're starting out with Alabama State, and so that ought to be something. Yeah, we're getting into feast week, and that should be fun. And
Yep.
hopefully
You're
we get to see all this stuff on I think we actually do get to watch all this stuff too, because no Flow TV from here on out. I mean, the Paradise Jam is all on ESPN. Um, and if any of them happen to be on the linear networks, hey, good news for me. Apparently, YouTube TV and ESPN kissed and made up, so good news for Bob.
I was thinking about that because I subscribed to the ESPN package for the month, and I forget what it cost to get it. So I had all the ESPN stuff, but it was really annoying because it's not tied to my YouTube TV, and so you have to watch so many more commercials and all this other crap. And I'm like,
Oh yeah,
I'm just so used to turning on a game. Like if I wanted to see Youngstown State versus St. Bonaventure, I would turn it on at halftime, blow through all the commercials, and finish right on time, or near on time, so I could see a lot more games in a lot more efficiently. And that whole ESPN package that you buy is like, that's dog crap. It was super expensive, and it was not nearly as good as just the old ESPN Plus, which was what, $10 a month or something like that. Like
yeah.
I can't wait to get back to that, as opposed to what I've been
Well, good luck
subscribing
with
to.
that because it seems like they do not want to go back to that anytime soon. I mean, what I would like is I would like them to start doing multi-view at a certain point. That would be awesome. They're doing it for some of these other sports. Why aren't they doing this for us? You're killing me. I'm saying this as if they have anybody, as if they haven't laid off a million freaking people, and because they have to pay Stephen A. Smith ungodly sums of money for no good reason at all. But or Pat McAfee or God, it seems like those dudes probably comprise all the salaries for all the people that used to work at ESPN who are probably doing all the crap on the back end now
Yeah.
or were.
or were. Speaking of ESPN Plus, I don't know if we're getting near the end here, Bob, but I think there's a very special shout out that you were going to want to do this week that you could
Oh,
only see on ESPN.
absolutely, absolutely, and that is Cleveland State, the men's soccer team won the Horizon League championship on a golden goal in overtime, a header. I saw it myself. I think I scared the crap out of my dog when I did the Andres Cantor goal when I yelled it. I did. I did it. I admit I did that. I do that all the time. For soccer games, obviously, but yes, that was definitely worthy of the Andres Cantor gold. Even though, but shout out to John Nolan who actually was on the call on that one, by the way. So he did not do that. He did not do that call, but I did in when I was watching by myself. It's okay.
That's interesting. On the women's championship, they had Greg Rakestraw doing the game.
They
So,
did.
yeah, so that's kind of nice that the voices from hoops from around the league were getting a little extra action
Oh yeah.
for the championships. But I knew you were wanting that Cleveland State victory, and they got that over Purdue Fort Wayne, who had to go to penalty kicks against Green Bay at a home game. So it's kind of
And we're using
definitely
home game in the loosest of terms because apparently my understanding of their home pitch is crappy and they had to go to a school
it's
for an NAIA school's pitch to do it or something to go play or something. I don't know.
their home field is grass, I believe, and it snowed,
Yes,
so
it
that's why
did.
they couldn't play that. Yep. So
I
that's
do
why they
not. Yeah.
played. Yeah, but regardless, nice shout out for Cleveland State. They had the best team all season, the most consistent team all season in the men's soccer, and they
Yep.
when they needed it, they got it. So congrats to the guys on the squad.
That they did. And so that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Tune in next week where Jim will be recording his part of the podcast from the sunny Virgin Islands. I'll be sitting in the maybe sunny or not Akron area, as I always do. But until then, you can go to horizonroundtable.com. That's where all our podcast episodes and all of our articles are. You can pull us up wherever podcasts are available, and you can pull us up on your Amazon or Google devices. So tune in next week. Until then, thank you all for listening.